What if I told you that hidden beneath centuries of forgotten texts lies the name of a God so powerful that ancient mystics believed he ruled over 365 heavens? What if the very letters of his name contain mathematical codes that unlock the mysteries of time itself? What if this forgotten deity holds the key to understanding the true nature of light and darkness, good and evil, creation and destruction? You're about to discover the complete story of Abraxas, a name whispered in secret temples, carved into ancient gemstones, and feared by early Christians as demonic. But the truth is far more extraordinary than you've ever imagined. Stay with me until the end, because I'll reveal why this ancient god might be more relevant to your spiritual journey today than in any mainstream religion has ever told you. Welcome, seeker of hidden truths. I'm your guide into the shadows of forgotten wisdom. Today, we dive deep into one of history's most mysterious and powerful spiritual entities, a being that ancient Gnostics called the God above all gods, a name that carries within it the secret geometry of existence itself. This is the story of Abraxas. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're walking through the dusty streets of Alexandria, Egypt, in the year 120 AD. The air is thick with incense, and the sound of heated theological debates echoes from every corner. Mystery schools flourish here. Secret knowledge passes between initiates in whispered conversations. In this world of spiritual seekers, one name begins to emerge from the shadows. A name that will challenge everything people believe about God, reality, and the nature of existence itself. Abraxas. But before we understand who Abraxas truly is, we must first understand the world that gave birth to this mysterious deity. The 2nd century AD was a time of spiritual revolution. Christianity was still in its infancy, struggling to define itself against the backdrop of competing religious movements. And among these movements, none were more radical or more threatening to established religious authority than the Gnostics. The Gnostics believed something that terrified the early church fathers. They believed that every human being could know God directly. No priests necessary, no intermediaries, no institutional control over the divine experience. They taught that hidden within each person was a spark of the divine, a fragment of pure consciousness that could, with the right knowledge, reunite with its source. This knowledge they called gnosis, direct, personal experience of the divine. And at the center of their cosmology stood a figure unlike any god the world had ever known. His name was Abraxas. Let's go deeper into the mystery. The first person to speak openly about Abraxas was a man named Basilides. He was a Gnostic teacher living in Alexandria around 117 to 138 AD. Brilliant, controversial, and utterly convinced that he had received secret knowledge directly from the apostles of Jesus. But Basilides taught something that shocked both Christians and pagans alike. He taught that Jesus Christ was not the ultimate divine being. Instead, Jesus was merely a phantom, a manifestation sent to earth by a far greater power. That power was Abraxas. According to Basilides, Abraxas was the supreme deity, the ruler of not one heaven, but 365 heavens, each heaven corresponding to one day of the solar year, each heaven containing entire worlds of spirits and divine beings. But here's where it gets truly mystical. The name Abraxas, when written in Greek letters, has a numerical value of exactly 365. Alpha equals 1. Beta equals 2. AO equals 100. Alpha equals 1. Equals 1. Equals 60. Alpha equals 1. Sigma equals 200. Add them up and you get 365. This wasn't coincidence. This was cosmic mathematics. The ancients believed that the numbers contained divine power, and the fact that Abraxas's name equaled the number of days in a year suggested that this deity was intimately connected to the flow of time itself. Think about this for a moment. While other gods were associated with specific domains, war, love, wisdom, Abraxas was associated with time, with the fundamental rhythm of existence, with the very heartbeat of the cosmos. But the numerical mystery goes even deeper. The word Mithras, the name of the Persian god of light worshipped throughout the Roman Empire, also adds up to 365 in Greek. This suggests a connection between these two deities, a shared identity perhaps, or competing versions of the same cosmic principle. Some scholars believe that Abraxas and Mithras were different cultural expressions of the same universal archetype, the divine principle that bridges light and darkness, that rules over the cycles of time, that stands above all dualities. Let's explore what this actually means. Have you ever noticed how most religions try to separate good from evil, light from darkness, sacred from profane? The Gnostics saw this differently. They believed that ultimate reality transcended these oppositions, and Abraxas embodied this transcendence. In Gnostic cosmology, Abraxas was not purely good or purely evil. He was beyond good and evil. He was the unity that contained all opposites, the divine principle that could embrace both creation and destruction, both light and shadow. This is why Orthodox Christians eventually came to view Abraxas as demonic. They couldn't understand a God who transcended their moral categories, a God who was simultaneously creative and destructive, benevolent and terrifying. But the Gnostics understood something profound. They understood that ultimate reality must necessarily contain all possibilities, that the source of everything cannot be limited by human concepts of morality. Abraxas represented this unlimited divine potential. Let's go deeper into the visual mystery of this ancient god. When Gnostic practitioners created amulets and magical gemstones, how did they choose to represent Abraxas? Picture this: the head of a rooster, symbolizing the dawn, the herald of light, the awakening of consciousness; the body of a man, representing humanity's connection to the divine; and instead of legs, two serpents, symbolizing wisdom, transformation, and the kundalini energy that rises from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. In one hand, Abraxas holds a whip, representing divine authority and the power to command spiritual forces. In the other hand, a shield, representing protection and defense against negative influences. This image is not random. Every element has deep symbolic meaning. The rooster's head represents the moment of awakening. In esoteric traditions, the rooster's crow at dawn symbolizes the soul's awakening to divine truth. It's the call that breaks the spell of spiritual sleep. The human torso represents the conscious mind, the part of us that can choose to respond to the divine call. The the part of us that bridges the animal instincts below and the spiritual insights above. The serpent legs represent the fundamental life force that coils at the base of the spine in yogic traditions. This is the energy that, when properly awakened and directed, leads to spiritual transformation and divine union. The whip represents the power to command and direct spiritual energies. It's not a tool of punishment, but of authority. The authority that comes from true gnosis, from direct knowledge of divine reality. The shield represents protection, because anyone who attempts to transcend ordinary consciousness, anyone who seeks direct contact with the divine, needs protection from the forces that would keep humanity trapped in ignorance and spiritual sleep. This is Abraxas, not a god you worship from a distance, but a divine principle you can embody and express in your own spiritual journey. But let's explore the magical practices associated with this mysterious deity. The ancient world was filled with Abraxas gemstones. These weren't mere decorative objects. They were powerful magical tools, believed to contain the actual presence and power of Abraxas himself. Practitioners would carry these stones in their hands during meditation. Some would place them under their tongues during ritual work. Others would sew them into their clothing, creating a constant connection to the divine energy of Abraxas. But why gemstones? Why this particular medium for connecting with divine power? The ancients understood something that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Crystals and gemstones have unique vibrational frequencies. They can store, amplify, and transmit energy in ways that other materials cannot. When a skilled craftsman carved the image of Abraxas into a precious stone, they weren't just creating art. They were creating a technological device for accessing higher consciousness, a spiritual antenna that could tune into the frequency of divine wisdom. These gemstones were often inscribed with additional magical formulas, words of power that were believed to activate the stone's spiritual properties, combinations of letters and symbols that served as keys to unlock hidden dimensions of reality. Some of these magical words have survived to this day. You might recognize one of them, abracadabra. That's right. The magician's famous phrase has its roots in the Abraxas tradition. Abracadabra is believed to be derived from the Aramaic phrase abracadabra, which means I will create as I speak. This connects directly to the Gnostic understanding of Abraxas as the divine principle that creates reality through consciousness, the God who speaks worlds into existence through the power of divine thought. When ancient magicians used the word abracadabra, they weren't performing parlor tricks. They were invoking the creative power of Abraxas. They were declaring their intention to participate in the divine act of creation. Think about the implications of this. If Abraxas represents the divine principle that creates reality through consciousness, then every human being who possesses consciousness carries within themselves a spark of Abraxas's creative power. This is the secret knowledge that the Gnostics died to protect. The knowledge that you are not separate from the divine, that the same power that creates worlds exists within your own consciousness. But let's explore how this knowledge was suppressed and why it was considered so dangerous. As Christianity became the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, anything that challenged church authority became heretical. And nothing challenged church authority more directly than the Gnostic claim that every individual could access divine knowledge without institutional mediation. The Church Fathers launched a systematic campaign against Gnostic teachings. They declared Abraxas to be a demon. They portrayed Gnostics as dangerous cultists who practiced forbidden magic. But what were they really afraid of? They were afraid of spiritual democracy. They were afraid of a world where every person could claim direct access to divine truth. They were afraid of losing their monopoly on salvation. Irenaeus, one of the most influential early church fathers, wrote extensively against the Basilidians and their worship of Abraxas. He accused them of practicing magic, of using images, incantations, invocations, and every other kind of curious art. But notice what he's really describing. He's describing a spiritual practice that empowers the individual, that gives ordinary people access to extraordinary spiritual experiences. The church couldn't compete with direct spiritual experience. They could only suppress it. And so Abraxas was driven underground. His name was erased from official religious texts. His image was declared demonic. His teachings were forbidden, but the knowledge didn't disappear. It went underground, preserved in secret societies, mystery schools, and esoteric traditions that have survived to this day. Let's go deeper into the psychological significance of Abraxas. Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist and student of the unconscious mind, wrote extensively about Abraxas in his personal journal, The Red Book. Jung saw Abraxas as a symbol of the self that transcends all opposites. According to Jung, most people live trapped in psychological dualities. They see themselves as either good or bad, strong or weak, spiritual or material. But true psychological wholeness requires integrating all these opposites. Jung believed that Abraxas represented this integrated self, the part of the psyche that could embrace both light and shadow, both conscious and unconscious, both personal and transpersonal elements of the human experience. This is why Jung called Abraxas the God who is difficult to know, because knowing Abraxas means knowing yourself completely. It means facing every aspect of your personality, including the parts you'd rather keep hidden. It means accepting that you contain within yourself the capacity for both creation and destruction, both wisdom and folly, both love and fear. This psychological understanding of Abraxas offers a profound path to personal transformation. Instead of trying to eliminate your shadow side, you learn to integrate it. Instead of denying your darker impulses, you learn to transform them into sources of power and wisdom. Jung discovered that people who could successfully integrate their opposing psychological elements experienced a kind of spiritual rebirth. They became more creative, more authentic, more fully alive. This is the gift that Abraxas offers to the modern seeker. Not escape from the complexities of human nature, but integration of all aspects of the self into a unified, powerful, and creative whole. But how does this ancient wisdom apply to your life today? Look around at the world we're living in. We're surrounded by false dualities. You're told you must choose between science and spirituality, between material success and spiritual development, between individual fulfillment and social responsibility. The wisdom of Abraxas suggests a different approach. What if these aren't either-or choices? What if the path to true fulfillment lies in integrating these apparent opposites? What if you could be both scientifically informed and spiritually awake, both materially successful and ethically grounded, both individually empowered and socially connected? This is the Abraxas path. the path of transcendent integration. Let's explore how you can begin to work with Abraxas energy in your own spiritual practice. First, understand that Abraxas is not a god you worship. Abraxas is a divine principle you embody, a state of consciousness you can access and express. Begin by examining the dualities in your own life. Where do you see yourself trapped in either-or thinking? Where do you feel torn between competing values or desires? Instead of trying to resolve these tensions by choosing one side over the other, try a different approach. Ask yourself, how can I honor both sides of this apparent opposition? How can I find a creative synthesis that includes both elements? This is how you begin to think like Abraxas. This is how you begin to access the divine wisdom that transcends all dualities. Second, pay attention to the numerical patterns in your life. Remember, Abraxas is associated with the number 365, the number of days in a year, the rhythm of time itself. What patterns do you notice in your daily rhythms? What cycles repeat in your life? What natural timing wants to emerge in your spiritual practice? The Abraxas consciousness is deeply attuned to natural cycles, to the rhythm of seasons, the phases of the moon, the daily cycle of darkness and light. By aligning your spiritual practice with these natural rhythms, you begin to tap into the same cosmic intelligence that the ancient Gnostics associated with Abraxas. Third, work with symbols and sacred geometry. Create your own Abraxas talisman. This doesn't have to be an expensive gemstone. It can be as simple as a piece of paper with the Abraxas symbol drawn on it. But draw it mindfully. As you create each element, the rooster head, the human torso, the serpent legs, the whip and shield, meditate on what each symbol represents in your own life. Where do you need to awaken, like the rooster calling the dawn? Where do you need to exercise conscious choice, like the human torso bridging heaven and earth? Where do you need to activate your life force energy, like the serpents of wisdom? Where do you need to claim your spiritual authority, like the whip of divine command? Where do you need protection, like the shield against negative influences? Let your talisman become a reminder of your own divine potential, a symbol of your commitment to transcend limiting dualities and embody integrated wisdom. But let's go even deeper into the mystery. There's something about Abraxas that most people don't understand. Something that makes this ancient god particularly relevant to our current moment in history. We're living through a time of unprecedented polarization. People are more divided than ever along political, religious, and cultural lines. Everyone wants to force you to choose sides. Everyone wants to reduce complex realities to simple either-or propositions. But what if this polarization is actually a spiritual opportunity? What if it's calling us to develop the Abraxas consciousness, the ability to see beyond surface-level oppositions and find the deeper unity that connects all apparent enemies? This doesn't mean becoming wishy-washy or refusing to take stands on important issues. It means developing the wisdom to see how opposing forces often serve complementary functions in the larger cosmic order. It means understanding that every position contains both truth and error, both light and shadow. It means developing the spiritual maturity to extract wisdom from unexpected sources while remaining grounded in your own deepest values. This is advanced spiritual work. It's not for everyone, but for those called to walk the Abraxas path It offers extraordinary opportunities for growth and service, because the world desperately needs people who can bridge divides, people who can find common ground without compromising their integrity, people who can hold space for complexity in a world that demands oversimplification. Let's explore the shamanic dimensions of Abraxas consciousness. In many indigenous traditions, shamans are the people who can travel between worlds. They can journey to the realm of spirits and return with healing knowledge. They can bridge the visible and invisible dimensions of reality. Abraxas consciousness is shamanic consciousness. It's the ability to navigate multiple levels of reality simultaneously, to be fully present in the physical world while maintaining awareness of spiritual dimensions. The rooster head of Abraxas represents the shaman's ability to see beyond ordinary perception. Roosters are known for their keen eyesight and their ability to detect threats and opportunities that others miss. The serpent-legs represent the shaman's connection to earth wisdom. Snakes are creatures that shed their skin, symbolizing death and rebirth. They represent the cycle of transformation that shamans must undergo to access healing power. The whip and shield represent the shaman's tools of power, the ability to command spiritual forces and protect themselves and others from negative influences. If you feel called to develop your own shamanic abilities, working with Abraxas can be a powerful starting point. But remember, shamanic power comes with shamanic responsibility. It's not about personal aggrandizement or spiritual bypassing. True shamanic power is always in service to the greater good. It's about using your expanded awareness to bring healing to your community and the world. Let's talk about the feminine aspect of Abraxas that most people never hear about. While Abraxas is typically portrayed in masculine form, the Gnostics understood that ultimate divinity transcends gender. Some texts refer to Abraxas as both father and mother, both masculine and feminine principles united in one divine being. This is crucial to understand because it means that working with Abraxas energy involves balancing and integrating both masculine and feminine aspects of consciousness. The masculine aspect of Abraxas is the discriminating intelligence, the ability to make clear distinctions, to exercise authority, to take decisive action. This is represented by the whip, the tool of command and direction. The feminine aspect of Abraxas is the receptive wisdom, the ability to receive intuitive guidance, to nurture growth and transformation, to provide protection and shelter. This is represented by the shield, the tool of preservation and care. True Abraxas consciousness requires both qualities. Action without wisdom leads to recklessness. Wisdom without action leads to stagnation. Whether you're a man or a woman, working with Abraxas requires developing both your inner masculine and inner feminine qualities. It requires becoming a whole and integrated human being. This is particularly important in our current historical moment, when we're witnessing the breakdown of rigid gender roles and the emergence of more fluid and integrated forms of human expression. Abraxas offers a spiritual framework for this integration, a way of understanding that true power comes not from dominating others, but from harmonizing complementary forces within yourself and in your relationships with others. Now let's explore the connection between Abraxas and modern quantum physics. This might sound like a strange connection, but bear with me. There are profound parallels between ancient Gnostic cosmology and cutting-edge scientific discoveries about the nature of reality. Quantum physics has revealed that at the most fundamental level, reality is not made up of solid objects, but of energy patterns and probability waves. The observer plays a crucial role in determining what becomes manifest in physical reality. This is remarkably similar to the Gnostic teaching that consciousness is the fundamental creative force in the universe, that the divine mind, represented by Abraxas, literally thinks reality into existence. Modern physics has also discovered the principle of complementarity, the idea that particles can exhibit apparently contradictory properties depending on how you observe them. Light, for example, behaves like a wave in some experiments and like a particle in others. This parallels the Abraxas teaching that ultimate reality transcends all dualities, that at the deepest level, all apparent opposites are complementary aspects of a unified whole. The number 365, so central to Abraxas symbolism, also appears in modern cosmology. There are approximately 365 days in a year because of the specific relationship between Earth's rotation and its orbit around the Sun. This suggests that the ancient Gnostics intuited something profound about the mathematical structure of reality. They understood that consciousness, time, and cosmic order are intimately connected. Working with Abraxas consciousness can therefore be understood as a form of applied quantum spirituality. You're learning to participate consciously in the fundamental creative processes of the universe. You're developing the ability to observe reality in ways that activate its higher potentials. You're becoming a conscious co-creator rather than a passive victim of circumstances. Let's go deeper into the practice of Abraxas meditation. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Take several deep breaths and allow your body to relax completely. Now visualize the symbol of Abraxas in your mind's eye. See the rooster head clearly. This represents your awakening consciousness, your ability to see beyond ordinary perception. As you focus on the rooster head, ask yourself, what am I being called to awaken to in my life right now? What truth have I been avoiding or overlooking? Listen for the answer that arises from your deeper wisdom. Now focus on the human torso. This represents your conscious mind, your ability to choose and direct your life experience. As you focus on the human torso, ask yourself, where in my life do I need to take conscious responsibility? Where do I need to stop being a victim and start being a creator? Listen for the guidance that emerges. Now, focus on the serpent legs. These represent your life force energy, your connection to the transformative power of the universe. As you focus on the serpent legs, ask yourself, what in my life is ready to be shed and released? What new aspect of myself is ready to be born? Feel the energy of transformation moving through your body. Now focus on the whip in Abraxas's right hand. This represents your spiritual authority, your power to command and direct energy. As you focus on the whip, ask yourself, where in my life do I need to claim my power? Where do I need to stop asking permission and start taking leadership? Feel your inner authority awakening. Finally, focus on the shield in Abraxas's left hand. This represents protection, your ability to maintain healthy boundaries and protect your energy. As you focus on the shield, ask yourself, what negative influences do I need to protect myself from? What boundaries do I need to establish or strengthen? Feel the protective energy surrounding you. Now, hold the complete image of Abraxas in your awareness. Feel yourself embodying all these qualities simultaneously. Awakened consciousness, conscious choice, transformative energy, spiritual authority, and divine protection. Sit with this integrated awareness for as long as feels comfortable. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and return to ordinary consciousness, but carry with you the memory of this integrated state. This is just one way to work with Abraxas consciousness. The key is to make it personal and relevant to your own spiritual journey. But let's address the shadow side of Abraxas spirituality. Any powerful spiritual practice carries risks, and Abraxas work is no exception. Because Abraxas transcends ordinary moral categories, some people misinterpret this as permission to abandon all ethical constraints. This is a dangerous misunderstanding. Transcending dualities doesn't mean ignoring the very real consequences of our choices. It means making choices from a deeper level of wisdom that takes into account the full complexity of each situation. Working with Abraxas requires tremendous spiritual maturity and ethical grounding. It's not about doing whatever you want. It's about aligning your will with the highest good in every situation, even when that requires difficult sacrifices. Another potential shadow is spiritual bypassing. Some people use Abraxas consciousness as an excuse to avoid dealing with practical responsibilities or psychological healing work. True Abraxas consciousness embraces both transcendent and immanent realities. It works with both spiritual principles and psychological patterns. It honors both mystical experiences and practical effectiveness. If your spiritual practice is making you less functional in ordinary life, rather than more functional, you're probably missing something important about the teaching. The goal is integration, not escape. The goal is to bring divine consciousness into every aspect of human life, not to use divine consciousness as a way of avoiding human life. Let's explore the relationship between Abraxas and other spiritual tradition. While Abraxas emerged from the Gnostic tradition, similar principles appear in many other spiritual paths. In Hinduism, the concept of Ardhanarishvara represents the divine as simultaneously masculine and feminine. In Taoism, the yin-yang symbol represents the unity of opposites. In Kabbalah, the tree of life shows how divine emanations include both merciful and severe aspects. This suggests that Abraxas consciousness represents a universal spiritual principle that transcends any particular religious tradition. It's a way of understanding divine reality that emerges whenever human consciousness reaches a certain level of sophistication and integration. You don't have to abandon your existing spiritual practice to work with Abraxas. Instead, you can use Abraxas consciousness to deepen and expand whatever path you're already walking. If you're a Christian, Abraxas can help you understand the deeper mystical teachings of Jesus about the kingdom of heaven that transcends all worldly categories. If you're a Buddhist, Abraxas can illuminate the middle way that avoids the extremes of indulgence and asceticism. If you're following a New Age path, Abraxas can ground your spiritual aspirations in the practical wisdom needed for real transformation. Abraxas consciousness is ultimately about spiritual maturity. It's about moving beyond simplistic thinking and embracing the full complexity and mystery of divine reality. Now let's talk about the future of Abraxas consciousness in our evolving world. We're living through a time of unprecedented global transformation. Old structures are breaking down, New possibilities are emerging. Humanity is being called to evolve to a new level of consciousness, or face the consequences of remaining trapped in outdated patterns of thinking and behavior. In this context, Abraxas consciousness offers something unique and valuable. It offers a way of navigating complexity without losing your center, a way of embracing change without abandoning wisdom, a way of transcending limitations without bypassing responsibility. The leaders of the future will be people who can hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, who can find creative solutions that honor competing values, who can bridge differences without compromising their integrity. This is Abraxas consciousness applied to leadership and social transformation. We need people who can see beyond the polarizations that are tearing our world apart, people who can find the deeper unity that connects all apparent enemies, people who can midwife the birth of new forms of human community that honor both individual freedom and collective responsibility. If you feel called to this kind of service, studying and embodying Abraxas consciousness can be invaluable preparation. But remember, this is not just about changing the world. It's about changing yourself. The outer transformation begins with inner transformation. The revolution in consciousness that humanity needs must begin in your own heart and mind. Let's go deeper into the practical applications of Abraxas wisdom. How do you apply this ancient teaching to modern challenges like career decisions, relationship issues, health problems, and creative projects? The key is to approach every situation from the integrated consciousness that Abraxas represents. Instead of thinking in terms of either or, think in terms of both and. Instead of looking for simple solutions, look for creative syntheses that honor multiple values. For example, let's say you're facing a career decision between a high-paying job that doesn't inspire you and a meaningful job that pays very little. The conventional approach is to choose one or the other based on what you value more, security or purpose. The Abraxas approach is to ask, how can I create a situation that honors both my need for security and my need for meaningful work? Maybe that means taking the high-paying job temporarily while building the skills and connections needed for meaningful work. Maybe it means finding ways to bring more meaning to the high-paying work. Maybe it means discovering creative ways to make meaningful work financially sustainable. The point is not to avoid difficult choices, but to approach them with the kind of integrated thinking that often reveals unexpected possibilities. This same principle applies to relationship challenges. Instead of viewing conflicts as battles between right and wrong, view them as opportunities to find deeper levels of understanding and connection. Instead of trying to win arguments, try to understand what valid needs or concerns might be hiding behind apparently unreasonable positions. Instead of demanding that others change, focus on how you can change in ways that inspire positive responses from others. This is Abraxas consciousness in action. It's not about being a doormat or avoiding necessary confrontations. It's about approaching every situation with the wisdom that comes from seeing the bigger picture. Let's explore the connection between Abraxas and creativity. All creative work involves the integration of opposites. You must balance structure with freedom, planning with spontaneity, critical judgment with open receptivity. Many artists and writers struggle with this balance. They get stuck in perfectionism or lost in chaos. They swing between excessive self-criticism and uncritical self-indulgence. Abraxas consciousness offers a different approach to creativity. It suggests that the creative process itself is a spiritual practice, a way of participating in the divine act of bringing new possibilities into manifestation. When you approach your creative work from Abraxas consciousness, you're not just trying to produce something, you're trying to channel something. You're opening yourself to become a vehicle for creative forces that are larger than your personal ego. This requires both receptivity and discrimination. You must be open enough to receive inspiration, but discerning enough to craft that inspiration into forms that can communicate effectively with others. You must be willing to risk failure, but committed to excellence. You must honor your unique vision, but remain sensitive to the needs and interests of your audience. This is the creative path of Abraxas. It's demanding, but it's also extraordinarily fulfilling because you're not just creating art or literature or music. You're participating in the ongoing creation of reality itself. Now let's address some common misconceptions about Abraxas. First, Abraxas is not Satan or any kind of evil entity. This misunderstanding arose from early Christian polemics against Gnostic teachings. Orthodox Christians couldn't understand a God who transcended their moral categories, so they labeled such concepts as demonic. True, Abraxas consciousness is profoundly ethical, but it's ethical in a more sophisticated way than simple rule following. It's ethical in the way that requires wisdom, compassion, and careful attention to the unique circumstances of each situation. Second, Abraxas is not about moral relativism or anything goes thinking. Transcending dualities doesn't mean ignoring the real differences between helpful and harmful choices. It means making choices from a deeper level of understanding that takes into account the full complexity of each situation. Third, working with Abraxas doesn't require abandoning your existing religious or spiritual beliefs. Abraxas consciousness is more like a meta-framework that can enhance and deepen whatever path you're already walking. Finally, Abraxas is not just an intellectual concept or historical curiosity. It's a living spiritual principle that you can experience and embody in your own life. The ancient Gnostics weren't just philosophers. They were practitioners who developed specific methods for accessing and integrating higher states of consciousness. Let's talk about the healing potential of Abraxas consciousness. Many people are suffering from what we might call spiritual fragmentation. They feel torn between competing values, conflicting desires, incompatible roles, and identities. Part of them wants security. Another part wants adventure. Part of them wants to be independent. Another part wants to belong. Part of them wants to be logical. Another part wants to be intuitive. Instead of integrating these different aspects of themselves, they try to eliminate the parts that seem problematic or inconvenient. But this only creates internal conflict and a sense of being incomplete or inauthentic. Abraxas consciousness offers a path to healing this fragmentation. Instead of trying to eliminate parts of yourself, you learn to integrate them. Instead of seeing your internal contradictions as problems to be solved, you see them as creative tensions to be harmonized. This is deep psychological healing work. It requires courage to face all aspects of yourself, including the parts you'd rather keep hidden. It requires wisdom to find ways of expressing all your different aspects in healthy and constructive ways. But the result is a kind of wholeness that most people never experience. A sense of being fully yourself, completely integrated, authentically powerful. This is the gift that Abraxas offers to anyone willing to do the inner work required to receive it. As we near the end of our journey together, let's reflect on what we've discovered. Abraxas is not just an ancient name or a historical curiosity. Abraxas represents a timeless principle of consciousness that is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. In a world that constantly tries to force you into artificial categories and false choices, Abraxas consciousness offers a different way of being, a way of thinking and living that honors the full complexity and richness of existence. It's a consciousness that can see beyond surface-level oppositions to the deeper unities that connect all things. A consciousness that can hold multiple perspectives simultaneously without losing its center. Consciousness that can navigate complexity with wisdom and grace. This is not easy work. It requires spiritual maturity, psychological integration, and ethical grounding. It requires the courage to question conventional wisdom and the wisdom to discern what is truly valuable in unconventional teachings. But for those called to walk this path, it offers extraordinary possibilities for growth, healing, creativity, and service. The world needs people who can transcend the polarizations that are tearing our communities apart. People who can find creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. People who can hold space for transformation and healing in a world that often feels chaotic and divided. If you felt called to this deeper understanding, if something in this ancient wisdom resonates with your soul, then perhaps you're being invited to explore the Abraxas path more deeply. But remember, this is not about blind belief or uncritical acceptance. This is about experiential knowledge, about testing these principles in the laboratory of your own life and seeing what happens. Start small. Begin with the simple practice of looking for creative syntheses instead of either-or choices. When you face a decision or a conflict, ask yourself, how can I honor all the valid concerns at stake here? How can I find a solution that transcends the apparent opposition? Pay attention to the cycles and rhythms in your life. Notice how opposing forces often serve complementary functions. Notice how problems often contain the seeds of their own solutions. Work with the Abraxas meditation I shared earlier. Create your own talisman or sacred symbol. Most importantly, begin to see yourself as a conscious participant in the ongoing creation of reality. You are not separate from the divine creative force that ancient Gnostics called Abraxas. You are an expression of that force, a unique and irreplaceable facet of the cosmic consciousness that is constantly bringing new possibilities into manifestation. Your life is not an accident. Your challenges are not meaningless. Your capacity for both creation and destruction, both love and fear, both wisdom and folly, these are not bugs in the system. They are features. They are the raw material from which you can craft a truly extraordinary life. But this requires you to take full responsibility for your own consciousness, to stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a conscious creator of your experience. This is the ultimate teaching of Abraxas, that you already possess everything you need for spiritual transformation and creative fulfillment. You just need to learn how to access and integrate the different aspects of your divine nature. The rooster head of awakened perception, the human torso of conscious choice, the serpent legs of transformative energy, the whip of spiritual authority, the shield of divine protection. All of these exist within you right now, not as metaphors or symbols, but as actual capacities that you can develop and express. This is why the early Christians were so threatened by Gnostic teachings, not because they were false, but because they were true, because they revealed that every human being has direct access to divine consciousness. No priests required, no institutional mediators, no external authorities to grant or withhold permission for your spiritual development. Just you, your willingness to grow, and the infinite creative potential that exists within your own consciousness. This is both the promise and the challenge of the Abraxas path. It offers extraordinary possibilities, but it demands extraordinary responsibility. It promises authentic spiritual power, but it requires authentic spiritual maturity. Are you ready for this level of spiritual adventure? Are you prepared to release the comfortable limitations that have kept you small and safe? Are you willing to embrace the full magnitude of your divine potential? These are the questions that every seeker must ultimately answer for themselves. No one else can make this choice for you. No external authority can grant you permission to become who you truly are. But if you choose to walk this path, if you choose to embody the integrated consciousness that Abraxas represents, you will discover resources within yourself that you never knew existed. You will develop the ability to find creative solutions to problems that seemed impossible. You will learn to navigate complexity without losing your center. You will discover how to hold space for transformation, both in your own life and in the lives of others. You will become a bridge between worlds, a translator between different perspectives, a healing presence in a world that desperately needs healing. This is the legacy of Abraxas, not as an ancient god to be worshipped, but as a timeless principle of consciousness to be embodied and expressed. The numerical value of 365, the rhythm of time itself, the endless cycle of death and rebirth, darkness and light, challenge and opportunity. Every day offers you 365 chances to choose integration over fragmentation, wisdom over ignorance, love over fear. Every moment offers you the opportunity to embody the transcendent consciousness that the ancient Gnostics called Abraxas. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The time is now. What will you create with the divine authority that flows through your consciousness? How will you use the spiritual tools that exist within your own being? These are not rhetorical questions. They are invitations to a deeper level of living, invitations to participate consciously in the ongoing evolution of human consciousness. The story of Abraxas is ultimately your story. The mystery of this ancient god is ultimately the mystery of your own divine nature. You are the rooster that heralds the dawn of a new age of human consciousness. You are the conscious mind that can choose to respond to the call of awakening. You are the transformative energy that can shed old patterns and birth new possibilities. You are the spiritual authority that can command and direct the creative forces of the universe. You are the protective shield that can maintain healthy boundaries while remaining open to growth and change. You are Abraxas, not as an external deity to worship, but as an internal reality to embody and express. This is the deepest teaching. This is the ultimate secret. This is the gnosis that the ancient masters died to protect and preserve. You are already what you seek. You already possess what you need. You already contain within yourself the very consciousness that created the stars and planets and set the whole cosmic dance in motion. Your only task is to remember, to awaken, to integrate, to embody, to express, to become fully, authentically, powerfully yourself. This is the gift of Abraxas consciousness. This is the invitation that echoes across 20 centuries of human seeking. Will you accept it? The ancient Gnostics believed that when enough human beings awakened to their divine nature, it would transform the entire world. That the kingdom of heaven was not a distant realm to be entered after death, but a state of consciousness to be embodied here and now. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps the collective awakening of human consciousness is exactly what our world needs at this critical moment in history. Perhaps your individual journey of integration and awakening is not just about your personal fulfillment. Perhaps it's your contribution to the healing and transformation of our entire species. Perhaps by embodying Abraxas consciousness in your own life, you become part of the solution to the seemingly impossible challenges facing humanity. This is the larger context in which the ancient wisdom of Abraxas becomes urgently relevant for our time. We need people who can think beyond dualities, who can find creative syntheses, who can hold space for complexity and transformation. We need the consciousness that Abraxas represents. And that consciousness lives within you. So as we conclude this exploration of one of history's most mysterious and powerful spiritual teachings, remember that this is not an ending. This is a beginning. The beginning of your own deeper investigation into the nature of consciousness, reality, and your place in the cosmic order. The beginning of your own experiential journey into the integrated awareness that can transform both your personal life and your contribution to the world. The beginning of your own embodiment of the timeless wisdom that flows through all authentic spiritual traditions, but which each generation must discover and express in its own unique way. This is your generation's opportunity to rediscover and reintegrate the ancient gnosis, to find new ways of expressing timeless truths, to become conscious participants in the ongoing evolution of human spiritual understanding. The story of Abraxas continues in the story of your own awakening. Write in the comments below what aspect of Abraxas consciousness most resonates with your current spiritual journey, and if this exploration has opened new doorways of understanding for you. Share it with someone else who might be ready for this deeper conversation about the nature of reality and consciousness. The ancient mysteries are alive and present in every moment. The divine consciousness that creates worlds is flowing through you right now. The same creative force that the Gnostics called Abraxas is the force that beats your heart, thinks your thoughts, and dreams your dreams. You are not separate from the mystery. You are the mystery, discovering itself through your unique perspective and experience. This is the ultimate teaching of Abraxas. This is the gnosis that can transform your life and contribute to the transformation of our world. The dawn is breaking. The rooster is calling. The ancient God is stirring to life within your own consciousness. Are you ready to answer the call?